Look at that entire era. How was the all the way up until 2012? Where at 2012, just before James came, or just right around that same time period, what was the attendance?
You mean for both services?
Yeah, the Sunday attendance.
No. It depends on what facility we were at and if we were just after a move.
Okay, so what we're trying to do is understand. So you had Mike and Faith, 800 here. Then you had things happen, and attendance began to decrease. And so we're just carrying this down here. Did attendance in this era increase or decrease or stay? It increased. It decreased.
It did both.
It did both.
What year did we leave Pioneer? That'll help. When did we leave Pioneer?
2009. No. 2012.
Bless you. Okay, so you're saying that attendance declined. So what's a number?
So we had 3 services here when we pulled back here after Easter at the mosque. We had 3 services.
City College, we had 2 services with a bigger group.
Yeah.
We were here for the interim before we found the pack.
That's right.
Yeah.
We were Pioneer for 2008 to 2012.
So we were there for 12
Correct.
years. I say it fluctuated up to 500 and down and down.
Okay, so why don't you put 500 and then 350 again? How's that sound? Doesn't matter, does it? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Okay, all right. So now let's go ahead and talk about the prouds in this area, in this era. So go ahead and we'll get the microphone to you, Michael.
The aforementioned Easter at the mosque, that was, I think, one of our proudest moments. That was when Michael shined. That was his greatest accomplishment in my mind. We made worldwide news, and we all had courage to go there. That we were putting our physical lives on the line, and so were the people at the mosque, so were the Muslims there. It was a very inspiring moment for me. Made me really appreciate this place.
Okay, sure.
Faith passed away on January 17th, and on the 30th of that month, over 1,000 people attended her memorial at Westminster Presbyterian Church, including all of the faith leaders of Sacramento.
Okay, so go ahead and write down 1,000 people attended Faith's memorial service, including interfaith dignitaries. It just popped in my head, so it's not like I'm that smart. It just pops in.
Kind of overlapping in those that I don't think has been acknowledged is that we did have a very strong Sunday programs where faith leaders from many different faiths actually came and presented to us. Yeah.
Was that the Wednesday program?
Okay.
No, I'm talking about Sunday
Okay,
program,
visiting,
where we had the
visiting
imams, we had
interfaith ministers.
yeah, which was really kind of very pioneering at the time.
Okay, got it.
I am proud that we did Be Peace and that we had the interfaith, intergenerational, first ever Be Peace camp.
So this applies to probably all the eras, but in this era, I've always been proud of every Sunday. It's a different experience for me, and I've heard that from other people too, what I've heard, Gary. So anyway, it's always a different experience. You never know exactly what the Sunday is going to be like.
Okay, you never know exactly what the Sunday service is going to be. and so how many of you also have that as a regret? Just teasing, just tease. No, that's a good point. Absolutely. Yes, absolutely.
I have two things. I'm proud of the people who, during this period, wore the oneness symbol, because that I had originally come to SLC during the first period, but then I stepped away for reasons that had nothing to do with anything SLC did. It was me. But I ran across somebody at work who was wearing the oneness symbol. And I was going through kind of a rough period, and I remember looking at her, and this was somebody I really liked, and I thought, I kind of liked that place. And so I came back to SLC because of the oneness symbol. The other thing is, I remember that Michael used to say that it was something to the effect of, SLC was the kind of place you could feel welcome even if you were an atheist. I may be paraphrasing that wrong, but I was proud of that because at the time I was dating an atheist, someone who was very anti-religion, and I was able to get him to come to the winter solstice service when Catherine Mandela was playing with her band. And he didn't run screaming. So I'm proud that SLC at that point lived what Michael was saying about everybody, including atheists, feeling comfortable there.
Okay, so we'll put on there open to all. That's great. That's great. Thank you. Okay. Yes.
And I have two also. I'm proud of the Women of Spirit retreat up in Tahoe.
Is that the one with the bears?
I'm not sure about the bears. Okay. And then the other thing I am proud of is the community saying that this is where you come to have your answers questioned. And so there was really a lot of soul searching done.
Okay. We got that.
Okay, two things I'm really proud of is the prayer chaplain ministry, and Dave Lyman was in charge of that. And in his leadership, we were involved in more things than just prayer chaplain. I mean, I wouldn't say just prayer chaplain. And it also gave me an opportunity to make more of a commitment because I was more in community. Even though I was here in the beginning, I attended sporadically, and then I made a commitment in 2008, became a member, and then became a prayer chaplain. And even though I'm not talking about a business model, it helped with retention of our members. And when we did prayers and we all got together and talked about this, and we didn't talk about any one individual issue, people would say, thank you for connecting me, thanks for talking with me, I hope to see you on Sunday. So it was more of a retention. And then Dave and Rachel Lyman, Rachel actually initially started getting more involved with Wednesdays and having them as Interfaith Wednesdays. And that's where we had all the nice conversations of interfaith leaders in the community.
Actually, Rachel Lyman and a team of 30 volunteers, this was in 2010, started an interfaith experience. This was over at Pioneer. It was a year-long program, and they had an average of 100 people attended each month. And it was an experiential, they fed us. They taught us, and then they fed us the culture of, the food of the culture. Can I do another one?
You have the mic.
I have the mic. And also, the incredible music program, the band, Anne and Paula, every week it's different and wonderful.
You forgot to write it down while you were saying it. All right, the mics are going around.
I'll wait.
Yeah, just. So there's a hand up over here, Louise, when you, or Elaine, once, yeah, when a microphone comes around. So just try to be as brief as possible.
I will.
Yeah, just one or two words is fine. There you go, interfaith experience. Good.
When I acknowledged Brenda in the last era, I forgot to acknowledge Leslie Leggio, who organized and set up all of that structure to get meals in to Faith and Michael when Faith was declining. You did an awesome job. I got caught up in the emotion and I forgot. So now I have two things for this era. I'll be really quick.
Okay.
One is we came together and with the wonderful midwiving of Sonia, we birthed a mother drum for our community. Yes. Yeah. And the other is just the awesome, and the last is the awesome effort by the staff and a whole host of volunteers that made those services, and beautiful fellowship inside, outside, under those trees at the PAC. They made that happen, and they did it with joy and grace, and I never heard a complaint.
So this is more of Michael. He received the Gandhi King Ikeda Award for Peace, which they did that at Christ Unity, and which makes me think. I remember when the two Sikhs were murdered in South Sac. Wherever we go, or whatever something happens, and SLC shows up, all of us at the gay parade, at the MLK march, at we just show up. So I would say we show up.
Yay.
And also, I got a oneness tattoo. So in 2008.
I have my own oneness tattoo.
Ooh.
Sorry, I have to take everything off to get to that. I do have my own tattoo. All right, you're next.
It's hard for me to get up, so
Don't
I'm
get
not
up.
going to get up.
That's fine.
I'm proud that Anne Roach, is that how you say it? Yeah, tied music with healing through the Memory Project for Alzheimer's. So
Okay,
that
Memory Project.
Yeah.
Okay, it's a different era. It's wrong era. We'll catch it in another era. Yeah.
Oh, is there another era?
Yeah, there's another era. Yeah, we'll put it down. We'll put it down. Yeah, we'll get it down. You can just kind of scribble it down here.
Which, music and myth.
Hi, I'm proud that the youth also were involved in the interfaith. We went to a mosque in San Francisco, and they were amazing. They did the same thing. They fed the kids, and my mom was there. She came, and she's very
Youth
Catholic.
involved.
Just wanted to add this because I think it's so beautiful. And the young man there talked to my mother about how Muslims have Mary in their book and gave my mother this book, and that began my mother's interfaith journey. But anyway, also for the children, they were, the guy was a young guy, and he was an animator, and he was just so connected with all of them. So those kind of interfaith opportunities for the youth as well were amazing.
All right.
Michael and the Slice Sisters band were invited to a conference, I think it was a Unity conference, and they did an entire program, and then when they came back from that, they held that also here locally and issued a CD, and I still listen to that CD. It was so wonderful. But so that taking the SLC music and ministry on the road.
Okay,
was
SLC
really powerful.
ministry on the road. Okay, we're going to have to move on to. I'm just conditioning the field to be more concise. Try. So it's we have an hour left on our scheduled time, and we probably have 2 hours worth of work. So we need to kind of be moving forward. So go ahead. Yes.
Real quick.
Okay.
Women of spirit in this community. Is it already in there?
Yep, we
Somebody
got
said
it.
it right.
Yeah, we got it. We have it.
The retreat, this is ongoing monthly Women of Spirit.
Monthly
Women of Spirit.
No, we're here. We're still in this. Okay. Okay. Okay.
And I don't know when it started. It was going when I got here.
Faith did it back in the beginning.
Yeah.
We have it up there.
Way up front. Yeah.
We have it. Okay, so remember,
Okay,
we're trying to.
I'm being quick.
Okay.
I am also proud of the Earth Advocates during this time and how we really incorporated that message of our vision. So Earth Advocates, and then jumping back to the era ahead, I forgot. I came here through the music program through an African dance and drum, and we performed at the Mandavi Center for the 9/11 ceremony, and I think that was the era ahead.
Okay, so what we wanted to do is try to create accomplishments that the entire community recognizes, as opposed to smaller individual things. So
the 9/11 at the Mandavi.
Okay, there you go. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Over here, Gary.
Okay, Gil.
One thing I'm really proud that this community did is to help support the Buddhist relics in this community 3 times. Once to help support Larry begin his journey. Once in here when we had, hang on, Luis. And thank you, Gordis and Hawkeye, for all that you two did to help make the relics possible, especially you, Hawkeye. Because that's a whole different story. But having the relics here when we first opened this building, and then a few years later, those 3 events, somewhere between 5,000 to 6,000 people saw the relics and got to see what is SLC.
We have to get Leslie the microphone because she's like, doing the major
Because I have the
work.
cheat sheet. We also, in 2010, celebrated having contributed over $1 million to the Sacramento community from our tithe.
Okay, go ahead, write that down.
And we started the process of getting our live streaming going.
Okay, live streaming? No? Okay, all right.
It's been subtly mentioned but not applauded that we purchased this building.
During this era?
We purchased this building during, 2009, and correct me, financial people, free and clear, right?
Okay.
Plus the $1 million tithe.
Okay.
I'm proud that we started working on Michael leaving the church and getting our new minister here, and we did that mural over there. We had a big day that we invited people in.
Intentional transition planning. Right. I know those fancy words. Those two words I know.
I'm proud that transitional team and this community attracted a senior minister who was willing to step into an extremely difficult situation, not bringing his sweater vest with him, and has been able and willing to stay the path and walk us through this.
All right, James Trapp hires. Yes. Yes, that's an accomplishment. Absolutely, and proud.
And I don't know that a lot of people don't know this unless you're on staff, that there has not been one day or one moment that our senior minister has said anything negative about anyone. Yeah. This is current, or
we're not in that area yet.
What year were you hired? So we are in that era.
I know, but he hadn't even got situated yet. You don't know how nice he is until after he's been here a while.
Perspectives.
But yes, I agree, and I worked with James for a number of years, and I got to tell you, everything that I asked James to do, he said yes to everything that I wanted to do with the home office and with the Unity Movement. And the problem is that our yes got eclipsed by other people who thought that that they knew better. Right, James? A few folks, yeah. Anyway, I echo that remark. I've witnessed James in a tremendous amount of effort and energy, and to see how stable and how solid and how even he is always.
He leads us without ego.
That's right. Okay. All right. Are we ready to go over here now? Okay, okay. Now it's the regrets, the things that happened that we perhaps could have done differently or wish were different. Please stand if you have the microphone.
I regret that we seem to have lost our focus on the interfaith mission, that we become more unity and less interfaith.
Okay. Lost interfaith mission. Or focus. Interfaith.
That's this era. Oh, that's the last era.
Okay, sorry. Okay, sorry. Take this off. Okay, we're regrets in this era, this same era that we've been talking about. Okay. Yes.
Our music program lost its inclusivity.
Okay, music program lost inclusivity. Try to be really concise as opposed to tell a long thing, because we're wanting to expedite now. Go, Mark. Sorry, who's the first?
Go ahead.
It's actually
Okay, because of the past issues with the budget not being, or finances being unclear, I felt a big sense of the whole community coming from a sense of lack, and I regret that.
I regret that we didn't have an interim minister to help grieve with the grief process.
Okay, no transition ministry process to manage grief.
Sherry first.
Lost the lease on Pioneer.
Just give her a minute. Give Leslie some time here. Lost Pioneer lease.
Oh.
I was going to say that as well. But I also regret that we lost the one service where we could see everybody at one time.
When James came, we were at the PAC. So that was where it came from.
So another one?
This goes. It's an important part of the losing the lease with the Pioneer Church. I feel like there was an integrity issue with how it was presented to the congregation. Honesty, yeah.
Oh, okay, so help me put that regret down. So was there the perception of so when we make a statement, there was missing integrity or whatever. So what's the underlying need that was what you're really wanting?
I wanted honesty.
Okay,
of exactly the details, and that wasn't given.
Okay, so missing details.
Yeah,
missing details about the PAC lease.
About pulling out from the Pioneer.
Oh, pulling out from the Pioneer.
Lease,
okay.
Yes.
Missing information surrounding.
Right. Thank you. Yes.
Surrounding that.
Yes,
That way,
yes.
we take the
got it.
the
Perfect.
barb
Thank you.
out of it.
Thank you.
Okay. Who's next? Penny.
I regret that Michael
left us.
Okay, Michael
I
left.
mean, that's when he left. God, I mean, that's the elephant in the room.
So,
Please stand if you can.
So my regrets or sorrows, not sorries, but sorrows, are that when we kept making transitions, we lost members of the church who I really enjoyed having here and missing them. And I think that's enough.
Okay, losing people through transitions.
I regret that the selection committee for the new minister didn't wait for greater consensus on who our new minister was going to be, that we went with we had a third, and a third split, making it a very difficult situation for anybody who took that new position. I regret that they did not wait for consensus, a majority consensus, on a new minister.
Okay, so whatever process was used, Michael, you're regretting that it was insufficient to really. So maybe it's not so much consensus. I'm wondering if there's a better word that was. Okay, a majority. There lacked a kind of overwhelming majority in support of the candidate, of the new candidate. Okay.
And I regret that we didn't have real transparency in that process. And also, I was on the board at that time, and then we had such dissension on the board during that time.
Okay, let's just pause so that Leslie.
I think I'm feeling
You're feeling the energy of what's going on now. So let's just pause and check in. If you're feeling this energy now that we're getting into kind of the thistles, where we're kind of it's not comfortable to be in this kind of awareness. So let's just breathe in and just breathe in a lot of compassion for all the people that have been a part of this experience, because no one signs up to be in a position where it seems that there's no transparency, there's no openness, there's no. Anyway, the point is that we just need to love ourselves into a better place. So let's just hold all of the people who are part of this ministry, who are a part of having their hearts been touched by this journey, and let us just breathe into every individual, every person that has been a part of this community, and just send love. And we know that as love goes forth to do its perfect work, it finds its rightful place within each one of us and completes itself through the fulfillment of love's presence. Thank you, God. So it is. All right, let's next. Yes.
I can sit.
No, you can stand.
Again, the non-sustainable finance decisions and spending.
So I'm noticing that we have. Just you can financial plan and spending. And spending, yes.
While I celebrated our ability to purchase this building, I regret the choice of this building. We had a number of criteria for the building. One was being proximal to easy transport. And for those of us who travel either over to 80 North or 50, it takes as much time to travel those side roads as getting here.
Okay, we got
Plus,
it.
I also regret the focus of this building on office space rather than community space.
Okay.
I think that's, now that we're having to be here, a detriment to our growth.
Yes, space becomes an issue. Martha?
I regret the lack of a grounded space more to the heart of the city. I really miss not being in the Midtown area.
Not being in Midtown.
I regret the lack of space for a children's program and the general lack of space for activities, you know, when you've got multiple things happening at the same time.
Elaine, you?
No, just.
Oh, Louise? Yes.
I regret the years of people leaving and a lack of communication on what is reasonable and what is possible on the remaining staff.
Okay. Impact of decline impacts staff, or decline impacts staff, something of that nature.
I have you, sister. Mine is, I regret that we don't have a volunteer coordinator, we don't have a special events coordinator, that we have a reduction of staff to do the things.
In this era? That's.
Okay, fine.
We're still in this era. Okay, so a few more comments about this era. Regrets?
I regret that we don't have a fellowship hall like we did at Pioneer.
All right, so it's more space stuff. That's good. We have a placeholder for that. So, all right, let's a couple more comments, and then we'll just move on to the last era because we still have this to fill out.
I regret that the issues with sense of lack, finances, that sort of thing, and then all the transitions, people leaving, made it harder on what became the Earth Advocates, because the group used to be called the Sustainability Ministry, but then we had to change the name of the group because people were getting confused between the group and the folks who were trying to raise money for the church. And so between that and people leaving, we never seemed to have enough people to make a critical mass to keep the group going, which sort of made it harder for us to fulfill the part of our vision statement about caring for the earth.
Okay, we got that. All right, let's see if we can move on now to the next era. And we're looking at 2013, so we have James as the... And
Christine was here.
okay, Christine.
And Dave.
In March.
Was Dave there then?
Yes, Dave was still there.
Are there any other credentialed leaders?
Well, Elaine is
Oh,
not a minister.
okay.
She wasn't hired.
Okay. All right. So
I wasn't hired as a minister. But
this is the eras. The era is really about the senior minister, as opposed to all the staff. Okay. So the staff issues can be out here, but we just want to make sure that we're clear as to what's going on in this era. Now, what is the attendance now? We'll say 350, and where is it right now? 200. Okay. Okay, so let's put 300 there and 200 there, just to kind of, there we go. We got room to grow. We can move those numbers. Okay, so now let's talk about the prouds of this era. Prouds of this era. Raise your hand and get the mic.
So I am proud that we have James that, for me, delivers a very clear, articulate, and very powerful message every single week. I'm proud of that.
So we'll just put, yeah. Yes, Celia?
I am proud of Deborah, who was instated as the lead of W.O.W. and brings a Wednesday service to multitudes of people from different cultural backgrounds, interfaith, etc., and they feel truly welcomed.
Yay. Okay. Reverend Deb. Okay. Lynn?
Okay.
You don't have to stand.
I can stand.
Okay, well, if you can, then get up off that chair.
I just handle steps. I'm proud of so much because I'm a Unity wanderer who landed here, and I got attracted here because I got into a conversation with Lejean, and I knew him from his soloing over at Christ Unity, which over on La Riviera, and I also remembered Paula because she was there for a while. So I will say, I have said to people, and I've brought people here, I say, this is where the music is. And we all know that. We got a lot of dots on our chart. I'm also proud of our technical department and the live streaming, so that people who cannot come, yeah.
I'm proud we've survived.
You need to get another marker.
We'll take turns.
Could you hand it to me? It's okay.
No, you have to just crawl on your knees over there.
Well, I will.
I'm proud that we started our Mystic Cafe parties.
Mystic Cafe. Okay.
We're going to go opposite sides.
All right. That concise is really good. That level of being concise is great. Okay, yes.
I'm proud of the landscaping group that converted our landscaping from lawn to drought tolerant.
Right. Okay, next.
I'm proud that introduced the Q process. I did the first Q process class, and it has grown into an integral part of this ministry.
It's okay.
I'm proud that the board has become very loving and cohesive.
Okay.
I am proud that we are making a difference for all of humanity, not just ourselves.
Making a difference.
I'm proud that we hired Karen Richmond and that we know what's going on with our finances. We have more clarity than we ever have.
Yeah, yeah.
Celia's next.
I'm just waiting. I am proud that marketing and communications is officially on the budget.
Yes, indeed. Me? I'm proud of our vitality. Our numbers are going down, we're crowded, and we're still enthusiastic, and I'm proud of the quality of people that James or whoever does this brings in, like you. Yeah.
That's right.
So I just have two words, Elaine and Louise.
Yeah. Yeah. Elaine and Louise.
I'm proud that SLC through the years has been a beacon for the interfaith community, and I'm proud that we get really quality people in here working. Even when they leave, we get new people in who do well as well, and so that overall I think we have really good programs here. I really appreciated Rachel and Dave, what they did on Wednesday nights, and how Deborah is carrying on the torch. And we have such wonderful music all the time. And even though we're a little crowded in places, I think this place has been working pretty well for us, considering, and then we can make good use of the courtyard when the weather's fine and so forth. So I think overall we're doing quite well, even though the money's a little tight and the population shifts. I think we're doing pretty well for ourselves. And I appreciate this is a place to come where everybody is always welcome. It's kind of like Cheers. Everybody knows your name. They're always glad you came.
Okay, so we're not going to finish, given our current place. So, are you willing to stay till 1 o'clock? Yes. Okay. All right. And then I'll have to check in about 12:30 to see if we can finish by 1 o'clock. All right. Please.
Short and sweet, everybody.
Our WOW interfaith and the interfaith field trips.
I was going to mention the annual galas that started, I think, since that time. Yes.
Okay, I am proud of our warm, welcoming, and creative youth education program.
I'm proud of the welcome table and the prayer chaplains program, which are the reason why I joined and the reason why I stay.
I'm proud of our resilience, not in the big things, I think we've proven that, but in the little things is where something happens and in like 5 minutes we've figured it out and we keep on going and the show goes on no matter what, and you know, we always pull it together, and I'm really proud that we do that.
I'm proud that we participated in the first interfaith Habitat for Humanity, which then became a template for the rest of the U.S.
So let's pause.
Okay, that was the first, interfaith. Build, unity build.
Soup and salad Wednesdays.
Yeah.
Try to be very concise.
Restored integrity to, tithing and ongoing community service projects.
I'm proud of the muscles. Oh, sorry.
She's having a hard time keeping up. Restore the integrity of tithing, and what was the second part?
And ongoing community service.
Ongoing community service.
Okay, I'm proud of the muscles here at SLC. They aren't mine. Well, a little bit. But throughout this whole era, there's a group of people, including young people and many seniors with a great experience, who not only moved us out of Pioneer, moved us to here and to the PAC and back, and shoved us into little spaces and still made room for groups to meet. It's behind the scenes and it's incredible. Before early tomorrow morning, this room will be transformed again by some wonderful people who put their muscle into the work. Thank you.
Okay, so it looks like Leslie's adding a couple more names I would add is Gil, Leslie, the other Leslie. And I would put the word thrive in all caps, because I see all this survive stuff. I would like to see it have thrive here. Thanks.
Okay, Lynn right next to Louise. Lynn's had her hand up.
Okay, we've got a couple people back.
I'm proud of the diversity of guest speakers and musicians that come to us.
Yeah, another angle on diversity, and that is one God, many paths. And this hasn't been mentioned before. I'm sure it didn't start now, but when we say everyone's welcome, no exceptions, I'm a real stand for that.
Fifty community members going to the Parliament of World Religion.
Yes.
This, and coming up.
Consistent review of our financial planning, process, procedures, and openness.
This one has been true all along and still holds true, and that is that Michael used to say, lifelong friendships are formed here, and that still remains the same. There are people out on Facebook who don't come here anymore, but they're still hanging together.
Lifelong friendships. Lifelong friendships.
I've known you too long.
I'm proud of our Facebook presence in reaching the broader community.
There's a shout out to Aiden for YOU because he represented the Youth of Unity in the international conference.
A committed effort to plan for the future and what SLC has come here to be in our next iteration.
Okay, let's move into regrets. And so if you want to just pull a line this way. And we'll start the regrets.
Okay. I regret that we seem a little bit spiritually confused. There is a perception that we're not doing as much interfaith. There's also a perception that interfaith means anti-Christian for some people. These are perceptions, but I think we're still a little confused.
Okay, so we can say there's a lack of coherence around what we stand for.
I regret that my regret in the wrong era.
Wait. Just wait a minute before you insert that regret.
She doesn't have to write that one down. I regret that we've lost our focus on interfaith, especially on Sundays.
Okay.
Am I next? Okay, am I next?
Just a second. Yes, you can be next, but stand and just be on deck. There. I'm wondering.
Is that it?
Okay. I need a chair. I need to sit on the chair.
So a couple of regrets. One is it's interesting. The interfaith has been coming up because I and a few other people submitted a proposal, and it wasn't acknowledged, and no one got back to me until I had to say I want to talk to someone about it. And the reason I'm saying that is because I've heard from other people, and I'll just speak for myself, that over the years, I think from about maybe 2008 to now, submitting proposals and not having them acknowledged or having people say, hey, that's great, I love that. And with so much transition in our community with ministers and others, things get lost in translation. And then my final regret, it may not be final, is that because I have a very full work life that I love. I have not stepped up when asked about being on the board. So when I retire, I'll reconsider.
So let me ask you a question before you sit down. That is, when you're talking about what was missing, or what was, you know, what tell me more about what you needed as opposed to what wasn't happening.
Mm-hmm. So for me, and from what I've heard from a few others who I don't see here anymore, is being acknowledged, being heard, having a forum and a way to present. It could be just presenting to the board. It could be presenting to a minister of education, a way for people to come up with their ideas. And what I do in my work is figure out how to make it work for someone and have them do their projects.
So a way of moving ideas and projects forward.
Right.
Okay.
And whether it's funding needed, resources, other people, listening to that and having a way to present it. And I'm not a shy person, and I write really well. It's not just about me. I think it's important that I put it up there.
Okay.
Is anything else,
No,
Gary?
that's it.
You okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
I'm not going to stand. I regret that there is no visible process for assessing the talent of your membership. Just to see, you know, what is that rich resource that you have in time and talent.
That's a module in the coaching program, so that'll happen.
Okay.
Yeah. So what's missing is
Gifts and talents.
Gifts and talents assessment.
I want to say that I totally agree with Maureen. I have the same issues that over the years I and many other people have presented what seemed like really good, practical, pragmatic ideas that could add a lot to the church if they were implemented, and get little or no feedback and no one aiding to get these things going. And also, what the last speaker said, yeah, that we should assess abilities and gifts of the congregation so that they can be utilized better. I think those two things are very, very important, and there isn't enough feedback and cooperation in moving these ideas forward.
So what is the need then? So we don't want to leave it sort of hanging. There is nothing here. There may be something here, but it's not making its way to you. So speak to what is the unmet need, as opposed to saying what is not happening that should happen. So what is the need? The need is for...
Okay. People come up with excellent ideas, many people, not just me, but then it seems like people say, that might be good, but then absolutely nothing happens.
Okay, but what's the need?
The need is...
To be responsive to...
Responsive to suggestions and let us know if it's a board issue or whatever, what can happen about it or not, and if not, then let them know why. If they just need someone to spearhead it, then
so
let it be done.
Let me try to phrase it, and let me check to see if this is accurate for you. So you regret that there's no process for following through with ideas that are suggested, and no way in which to get back to those people who've suggested those ideas.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. We've got that down. Whoever has the mic, yes.
I regret that we don't have more diversity within the congregation.
Okay, very clear. Thank you.
And I regret that we don't have the staff and the resources to be as responsive to all of you. And as someone who's only been here for 3 years, I regret that because the comparison is what we used to be able to do, that you can't share in the joy for me when there is a success. When you see numbers like the hundreds, and I get excited that the trend turned last year from 195 on average, and early this year in March we're at 217. So for me, I'm going, yay, 217, and everyone else is like, 300 is the low. But I celebrate successes every day, and I regret, and I'm excited about when you see only one paid senior minister, and at a point in history there were many full-time paid, just the minister staff, not including the staff. And where I'm positioned is I do two jobs, and I don't do them well because I only have a certain amount of time. And I regret that because all of you have amazing things. Look what we did when we had the time and the resources to do it. And I believe all of that could happen again. But it is sad for me that we aren't living our potential.
So Elaine, is it true that what you regret is that a need for people to understand the challenges and the struggles and the stresses that staff face in this economy with the kind of dynamics that are present? Yeah. Okay. You're not wanting to make anybody feel bad. You just want people to understand what the situation is. Yeah.
I have a deep regret that anyone like Mary would have a need that's not met to be heard or to have their ideas implemented. And I regret that I don't have 8 hands and eight more hours in every day to devote to the amazing talent that we have here. And it's my regret, again, in this era, that we do not communicate the number of staff hours that we have to devote to developing anything other than what's right in front of us.
So I regret losing quality staff members, mostly because I assume that there's so much work and there's not enough finance, not enough resources. I hate seeing people go that are great.
So I regret feeling kind of pushed to do EFT with my tithe, my monthly tithe. I write a check, and I like writing a check, and I pray on that check, and so I'm not going to do EFT.
That's great. Should I go up? Or?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So I also regret that we're still looking at a model of tithing. I'm not saying it's archaic. It's just since I got involved in 2008 making proposals for other ways to bring money in, I do it like every year, and it's like, where are people? Why aren't they looking at something different than just tithing? There's nothing wrong with tithing. I think it's great for a spiritual community. And also in terms of volunteers and talents, that's my background. I'm a career and workforce specialist, development specialist. And the reason I'm saying that is because there's so much talent that when you volunteer, you have an opportunity to learn new things and to use gifts that you cannot use at work because either people are not paying you for it or it's not in your job description or whatever. And when I do career consulting, volunteering is one of the first things I recommend. And I'm also an AARP policy advisor, and the reason I'm saying that is because I'm looking at the demographics of our community here. And volunteering and learning new skills is really number one. That's Jeanette. I'm just going to shorten it. It's done. It's done. Thanks.
I miss the enormous fellowship hall that we had at CUC with the round tables that people sat around for hours after church with time to schmooze. We have lots of wonderful programs here, but it's agenda-oriented, and we're even, choir practice, we're practicing, and then we sing, but we never actually sit down and schmooze and get to kind of know each other a little bit. And I think that, maybe the wonderful fundraisers we have are expensive, but we could throw little potlucks and maybe have them, anyway, doing something cheaply where we can schmooze for hours. I think that would be great. It would include more people.
Go ahead. Yes.
Okay. To follow up on what was said about staff hours and not enough time and volunteering, my regret is I don't really feel integrated as a member because I'm not contributing. I am jobless. I'm not getting benefits, so I have zero income. So I can't tithe and I can't do anything, but I can volunteer. And I've proposed many times things that I could contribute, and they've always been refused. So that's my regret. If you need hands to help here, I could volunteer a couple of hours a week. So whoever is in charge of that, take note.
So there's a microphone. So I'm hearing that what you regret is for there to be a way in which people who are like yourself willing to volunteer, but there's really doesn't seem to be a way in which that can be fulfilled for you.
No volunteer coordinator.
Right. Okay.
No volunteer coordinator.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay. So let me just say this. Try not to try to fix what's broken by having a comment that kind of sheds more light on something. So we're not here to try to kind of answer everybody's question or meet everyone's unmet need through our conversations. We're here as a task to fill this out so we can create something that enables us to move forward. So I'm actually here. I'm going to speak here on tomorrow, so I can be here till 5 o'clock tonight. So from now on, you are in charge of the time. So I'm inviting you to be as concise as you possibly can, but if you need to talk and tell stories, just know that people are starting to disengage when that happens. So you want to be heard, so try to stick with being very concise and frame it in the context of what's missing for you that is about your need or about the need of the community, as opposed to making a statement that's pointing a finger at what's not happening. Okay, it's important that we kind of own that this is something that we want to move forward, and if we create more disconnect or more incoherence, then it's going to delay that process. Please.
I regret the lack of space in the sanctuary, and I regret the lack of parking. And one more. I regret the lack of millennials and those who are younger than me that are actually living in this economy and are more likely to figure out what we need to do in it. Oh wait, this gentleman.
Leslie, you ready? I regret that we didn't start the queue process sooner, and I regret that due to low bandwidth, congregants and staff and board members make rash, fear-based decisions because of so many voices saying they can't agree.
So many voices say they can't agree.
Yes. That's right. So it's a symptomatic of you all have been stretched so thin, you know? Yes. So, you know, have compassion for yourselves. You know, don't be so hard on each other. This is hard work. And in these times, it's not easy. But we can do it. Michael?
This is probably redundant, but since I've been here, I really regret the loss of so many good people that I came to know and love, and I no longer see. And most recently, the loss of Becca Costello just breaks my heart. She's such a shining, bright light in this community. To see her leave just is heartbreaking. It's a huge regret for me.
I don't think that the congregants knew that yet. I don't know.
Oh, I thought it was sent out.
Oh, it was announced?
That's
Okay,
what I was
all right,
told.
sorry.
Who's got this?
Okay.
I think I'm saying something we've been circling around. I hope I'm not repeating. I regret year after year, despite our high level of consciousness, we are not manifesting superabundance.
So you're not the only one. This is why I'm busy. This.
I regret, as I understand our bylaws, I'm missing my voice being heard in voting for board. My understanding is the board chooses and then puts it before the voting. I'm just saying as my understanding. So I regret and I need to have my vote counted, as well as being part of the community and being requested to tithe, that my vote isn't there for if we're giving salary raises or how we're spending our money. I regret my vote doesn't count.
Okay, so let me just, okay, so let's just say that it's not that your vote doesn't count, it's just that there is a mismatch or a disalignment between the board's role to really partner with the membership in a way that has everybody feel really empowered and good about what's happening.
Because it feels like the election, you know, the popular vote.
Got it. But the bylaws do specify the process by which officer or board people are brought into the board, and it varies depending upon what the nature of the vacancy is. Some vacancies are appointed and some are elected. It's still a regret, yes. Yeah. And so the regret is what I'm wanting to presence is the regret is not that your vote doesn't count. It's just that there's a your vote counts. What is regretted is that the system itself is not empowering everybody's voice in the context of the important business. Yes. Okay. Got it. I hear you, and that's not an
repetitive.
No, that is something that I hear often in these kinds of meetings. Just wanted to validate that. Yes.
Two things regarding tithing. And one of the things that I was so impressed with earlier is that emphasis on tithing. And I know we continue to do that for money. But the opportunities for service and talents is not as great as I think it should be. And I think that's what things that would pull the community together is having those opportunities for service.
Right, we're going to have a volunteer coordinator, and that's coming online.
As they're not as developed as they should be. And then also in regards to tithing and going back to finances, and I don't know if this was the other time frame, but the lack of transparency for finances and the fact that we fail to follow through on our tithing commitment, which to me was huge. That was the foundation of our church, was to be giving 10% back to the community. And when we failed to do that and failed to let the congregation know, that was a real low point for me.
That was in 2012.
Okay, so she acknowledged that she didn't know where it went. So we'll find a place for that. Thank you.
I regret that as a newbie, I'm hearing that a lot of the accomplishments were on individuals and not the community as a whole.
Okay, this is typical minister-centric ministry practice. This is the nature of the unintended consequence of this ministry practice. It tends to work that way. We are evolving, but there's no quick fix. It happens in time.
Okay. I regret that we're living beyond our financial means. Living beyond our financial means. And I also regret the lack of LUT opportunities. Licensed Unity Teacher classes and training.
Okay, so are you saying that there's a lack of people who are in the credentialing process, or is there a lack of opportunities for those who are already credentialed as a licensed Unity teacher? I'm not quite clear.
Yes. Yeah, so
Both.
we've lost interest in taking the classes, and we've lost the classes being offered.
Okay, so right now almost all of those classes are offered online. So centers are moving away from offering those classes because Unity Worldwide has gathered the most competent teachers on the planet, and they're delivering those classes, and it's very affordable, and it's all online, and And so churches are moving away from trying to own the credentialing part and letting worldwide ministries do that because they do it so much more effectively. Then the issue is, how can we take those who do become credentialed, how can they serve the ministry? Then that becomes the next issue.
And that sense of community.
Yeah, exactly.
This may be redundant. I regret, my perception anyway, that the more I contribute financially, that somehow makes me better or select. What I'd really like to see is really getting across the idea that everyone can give, and everybody's gift, whether it be volunteering or $1 or $1,000, has the same value to the community.
Sure, that's really important, to make everyone's effort integral to the whole. And when everybody is doing what they can rather than doing what they're doing, when we shift into, we're moving away from the tithing-based funding model, by the way, moving into an ownership-based funding model, where it's all about the owner-partner relationship between the community and the leadership of the church. We have a long ways to go to get there, but we're moving in that right direction. So thank you for that.
When people leave, I regret we don't have a system in place or a team to try to contact these people to see, why they're not coming, or to encourage them to come back. And especially even the people that have been here for a long time, those are the ones who really tithed more too.
So I don't think this is redundant, but I just want to emphasize this. The comments about the millennials or other generations. And I know for me at work, there are 4 generations at work, which actually I really like. And what, thanks, Tina. And what I feel badly about, or what I feel sorry about, is that if we keep doing many of the same things, we're going to have people who we want to have come in, if they're very smart or really bright or looking, just like I have staff and they're very bright, and if they keep getting put on projects that are just brain draining, they have other places to go. And that's probably enough, is we need to support other models and listen to everybody.
As a board member, I regret that we don't have a better process between staff, the congregation, and the board in determining what our priorities are to be and what is it we're not going to do anymore in order to make room to step into our future. Our processes are sort of inefficient in that way.
Well, the good thing is we're running out of room. All right, are we ready to move on? I heard move on, and that's my middle name. Okay.
Wait.
All right, now.
Wait. I just wanted to piggyback what other people were saying and what I said earlier. One of my ideas, and it's not the first time I presented it, but I presented it again recently, to work on a young adult program, because we do not have one. My experience in 30 years of being in Unity, that as soon as people are out of YOU, they disappear. And I would like to see a young adult program initiated, and I sent a proposal to 2 board members, and I got 0 feedback on anything, not even an acknowledgement of it. And I think this is one area the church really must step up and provide something so that we can grow, thrive, and have continuity of membership. And it's one of the things that really needs to be addressed. I find that at all the Unity churches, if they don't have something for young adults, it's bye-bye. And this seems like a no-brainer to me.
Okay. Are we ready to move on? Evidently not.
I really regret that we don't have better mechanisms for informing the congregation about plans that are in process and plans that look into the future rather than just what we have to do right in front of us. There's a lot of that, but we need better information systems.
Okay. All right, we got that too. All right, let's move on to the next task. So now what we're wanting to do is we're wanting to just identify in terms of a number that works for understanding. So we want to consider here's the regrets of this era, and in the sense of we're looking at people leaving the community, left the association, no welcoming, so on and so forth. As you consider what's been stated with respect to the movement from this era to this era, what kind of transition, what kind of range do we need to put on number here?
The number of people?
No, the felt sense. In other words, 10 is really traumatic. And then 1 is it was really easy. So as you consider the events that happened here, how difficult was it to move into this next era in terms of the felt sense? I mean, you talked about every time there's transitions, people leave. Whether or not that happened in this era or down here, that's what I'm after. I'm after you telling me a sense of what it was like to kind of move from here to here, from here to here, from here to here. Okay, so maybe because we have Michael and Faith sort of in this first section here, and then Faith passes, and then now's a time without Faith, and then now here's James. So maybe what we do is we basically say, what's the transition range from where things were when Mike and Faith were doing their thing, and then now all of a sudden we're faced with the reality that Faith is gone. So what did it feel like moving from here to here? Okay, it was heavy. It was hard, right? Okay, so let's just go ahead and put a 10 here. There you go. And then from here, from where things lived in this era, where Michael was obviously experiencing the loss, and if you've ever lost a spouse, you have to recreate a whole different identity around who you are and what you're about. So as a community is impacted by that process that Michael is experiencing, and in many ways taking on a lot of that energy, what was it to move from here to here? I mean, another 10?
Because we also lost our location.
Okay, you all lost your location. So you've got a lot of loss. Okay, and so this era is the present. So we're not leaving. James is still here, and so we're not going to put a transition number here. But as we look at the transition or what's happened in the life of this church, this is no small thing in terms of its emotional impact on the community. You're carrying a lot of stuff with you in this journey. So now let's look at some of the possible unresolved issues. And while we can look at each individual era, I'm more inclined just to kind of presence what I'm hearing. And so as I check in with you and I get your nods, then we'll put it on there. Okay, so the first thing I'm hearing is that there's still carrying in this community a sense of loss.
Am I writing it?
Yes. No, we'll just start writing. It applies to everything. Yes, what do you notice?
So I notice a little bit different pattern. When I came in, the message that I was such a sponge and the message that I heard Larry Schelling say is don't attach to the teacher, really focus on the teaching. And because I was such a sponge, I took that in, and I wasn't attached to Richard or attached to Gaia or attached to Michael. So all the transitions were not 10s for me. They were like 2s and 3s. Now, where we are today, with 4 full-time staff and the sprinkling of part-time, we have our youth education director shifting out of that role to going part-time to very part-time, and we have our communications director, Becca Costello, leaving. So I have a 10 right now because 2 of the main people that I work with are, one is leaving and one is, so now it's a 10 for me.
Okay, so we're in a different question now. We've moved out of this, but thank you for presencing that, because it's important for us to acknowledge that there is right now in present day different people at different places in the spectrum of what's moving, and it's hard. This is a hard place for many people. So let me go back to this. We're wanting to identify unresolved issues. So I heard a lot about finances and integrity issues, transparency issues. Okay, and so we need to kind of put that in a bucket to kind of say that's still a baggage that the ministry has to engage. All right, and so we have integrity issues, we have financial issues, we have transparency issues. Okay, those are shadow qualities. We're not going to go to shadow qualities. We're talking about unresolved issues. So yes?
I don't know. I haven't taken Q yet. I want to take it.
Yeah.
So you just let me know where this goes. But there seems to be this great...
Get the microphone. Here's the microphone.
I say this in love. But there seems to be this great focus on loss and nostalgia that it almost becomes the cult of loss.
Okay, so you are presencing something that happens commonly for new people that aren't exposed to the old system and all the ways and having all those experiences. So from somebody who doesn't have the shared history, that's what you're experiencing now. And what needs to be heard is that your shared history is creating an energy that is turning off new people.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Okay. But you see on the other side of it, there's still the necessity to own and value the very experiences that are problematic for those who aren't conditioned to your conditioning. You know, and so this is why it's necessary to have a lot of compassion and also understand that you got to get over it. Eventually you got to get over it, and the Q process is going to help expedite that. How many of you not been in the Q process yet? Raise your hand. Okay, good. Now, those of you who have, just doing it once is insufficient. At Unity Spiritual Center in Spokane, where I'm from, we have over 300 people through the Q process and only 200 people in our congregation. So almost every one of those 200 people have been through it 2 or 3 or 4. We've had 5 people through it 10 times, and they're masters. And what happens when you have the whole community engaged in shadow work, then you're not making somebody else the matter with you. You're not pointing the finger at this is what's wrong with us. Instead, people understand that, no, I have an unmet need. And so my effort is to try to give myself what is missing that I would ultimately expect from outside of myself, but I need to be able to find a way in which I can partner with the community. And so as the community evolves, all these issues that you're talking about are going to be water under the bridge. But it's important that they're present now so that we can own it. We have to own what has been created. And those of you who don't share this history, your challenge is to own and hold this community in the space of being able to work through it. So those of you who are new, you're here as midwives. And those of you who are part of this shared story, it's time to hospice. And so there's nothing wrong with all the things that have been shared, we have to welcome it, and we just have to kind of tweak it in a sense so that we not make it about somebody doing this to me, but no, this is what's missing for me. And as we welcome and hear what's missing for each other, then our effort is as we understand and move forward, we understand that ultimately, like for instance for me, as a part of your coaching process to bring you into a more sustainable ministry practice, I know some of the things that you have to be willing to work through now. And I can guide you more coherently through the process of moving beyond these experiences. Because I got to tell you, all the things that you've described, it's not the first time I've ever heard these things. Okay. Well, so go ahead and write that down up here. The whole idea of what you just said, a cult of nostalgia. That's an interesting way of framing it. What do you notice as another unresolved issue?
It seems like there's a lot of frustration and a lack of communication.
Okay, so lack of communication. So what we're trying to present now is what you're noticing as unresolved issues. So it's not a story that you're trying to tell. You're trying to point us to, I'm noticing that this is an issue that we still have. Yes?
Inclusivity. We think we're really inclusive, but obviously we're not in terms of people's ideas.
Right, and look at the demographics. You have what you have, and it's certainly inclusivity is something that is everyone's growing edge in this society. Yes.
Unreasonable expectations from congregation, board,
and staff. Okay, excellent. That's a good. Okay, now you're tracking it. Carolyn.
Let her catch up.
Okay, let her catch up. There you go.
So I'm trying to think of how to say this. Almost an identity crisis or lack of clarification around our interfaith role, and it ties into communication because I think that we may be doing more than we realize, but people don't know. So just clarification around our interfaith role and how that plays out.
Okay, so you part of the unresolved issue is that you're still in an identity crisis.
The gap between what we have and what we want is enormous, and from that's what I mean by inadequate. We're inadequate to meet what we want.
Okay, so that is the belief, that limiting belief that you now possess.
Yeah.
Okay, so inadequacy or not enough. Not enough is a shadow quality and unresolved issues. But look that's exactly important, but that's not the truth. Because I'm here to tell you that this ministry can be 100% funded right now. It's just that something's not letting that happen. And it's your story. Not enough. Just, cross that out. Just put a sense of not enough.
Sacred listening versus just hearing people talk.
Okay, so as we look at that as an unresolved issue, then we have communication up there, so that's going to be our bucket for that part.
Okay,
all right. Gil?
There's two things I kind of hear. One, in the words of Mahatma Gandhi, be the change you want to see in the world. In other words, be a sovereign individual in what you're doing. The other one that I have is a phrase that it is better to ask forgiveness than to beg for permission. I hear a lot of things where people are begging for instructions. Wherever you go and you see something that needs to be, step into it. Kind of like, oh, let's straighten out the curtains. That balance out the chi. Yeah, conversation that had gone on, or the conversation that we'd had for almost 3 years to get this entire live stream matrix up and running. Don't ask for permission. Be the causality. Yeah, lack of ownership.
But you have to ask permission for the master calendar.
Yeah, and probably another way of saying that is people wanting to serve but not knowing how.
That's asking for permission.
I think to me, what I'm getting out of this, and I'm not exactly sure how to put it, but something around everybody, whether congregant, board member, staff member, whatever, needing to step back and really, I'm sensing sometimes people forgetting what we hear on Sunday about what we say we believe about abundance. Either we believe it or we don't.
All right, so part of the challenge is that, you know, we have this principle, there's one presence and one power, God the good, and then we have our exceptions, right? So there is an element of our being out of integrity with respect to our principles. In other words, we're not living as if everything's for us. And so this is also an unresolved issue, but it's almost like it's the problem with New Thought, is that we believe our thoughts and our beliefs and how we be with what we're having creates our personal reality, but we just go ahead and try to fix the outer instead of really address what's going on inside. And that is a big disconnect, and that helps create and exacerbate our sense of separation. So we have to, in the effort of resolving our issues, begin to find ways in which we line back up with our principles. And when we find ourselves off our cue card, you know, we have to kind of make our way back. And so this is a continuous effort. So part of the challenge is that your board right now is conditioned to predict and control. And they're conditioned to protect you against stress. This is the unintended consequence of the minister-centric ministry practice, independent of what your mission is. You see, this eclipses it all. And so we have to transition out of that ministry practice so that the leadership can partner with you. But before that can happen, everybody has to grow up. Because they can't partner with you if you're still being a victim. We can't partner with you if you're still dealing with thinking that they should treat me a certain way. Because this is important for us to own how we're showing up in our relationship to what we're having as our experience. And so the partnering won't happen for several years until we, well, it can happen faster, but typically in the context of cats, it doesn't happen very quickly because everybody's in an individual. Everybody's in a different place. And so that's why this process takes time. But suffice to say that there's nothing here that I've heard that can't be integrated and moved past. There's nothing here. You haven't seen bad or not enough like I have.
Okay, so I have, I think this is an unresolved issue, and I think it has to do with what Brenda talked about with folks that leave. And it's communication, it's balance, it's feedback. Why are the people leaving and taking the resources with them? Okay, it's an unresolved issue.
Okay, I can tell you why they leave. Would you like to know? Okay, there's two different depends upon what culture they're in. If they're in the culture of receivership, are you familiar with those two, culture of ownership and the culture of receivership? Typically in all churches, 20% of the people provide 80% of the resources. If you're in the 20% that provides 80% of the resources, you're in the culture of ownership, and you leave for a different reason than for the others who are in the culture of receivership, who don't give into it that way, but give into it as they can. You leave typically because you're able to get what you've needed, and then you move on. But the people who are in a deeper relationship, they typically leave because of a failed relationship somewhere within the system. And the problem is that when you try to find out what happened, they're going to tell you what happened. And then what do you do with that information? Do you use it to beat up on yourselves? Because right now, that's how you'd use it. That's how what my experience of people, when they get that information, they start deciding, well, maybe and typically what happens is it falls to the minister, and the criticism goes to the minister because this is why people are leaving. And so it's not, while it's a question that almost every community raises, why can't we follow up why people leave? My question to you is, be careful what you ask for, because when you're given the information as to why, you won't know how to deal with it. Because what are you going to do if it's all about a failed relationship between the minister and this person? How can you address it? You see. So it's a bigger issue. But I'm wanting you to hear that this is a very common issue, but there's a different fix other than trying to figure out why they left. It's important to figure out why the people are here, and what it is that they're capable of doing. So we go to who's gone because of the exercise. Remember the exercise I did earlier yesterday? We've all had the experience of having people we care about leave. And we think that there's something broken because of that. There may indeed have been an event that caused that, but it's also important for us to understand that there's a bigger purpose that we're being called to, in addition to valuing the people that have journeyed with us. Michael?
Are you saying then that we shouldn't ask people who leave why they left?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that what are you going to do with that information?
It depends on what the information is.
Right, and so that's the thing. I'm just cautioning you that if you do that, the tendency is then you get information, and now that person's expecting you to do something in advocacy oftentimes. And so I'm trying to save you from what can be complicating the healing process as opposed to facilitating it, is all. I'm just sharing information.
All right. Yeah.
All right, let's stay focused on here. Let's stay focused here, please.
Okay.
If you have a different opinion about what I just said, take it offline and talk to me about it later. But now let's come back to here. We're almost ready to finish.
I think I'm going to have another comment on the prosperity side, and I think you brought it up as an issue with New Thought itself, which is when the financial 2x4 comes swinging out of the darkness and hits you on the side of the head, that's when reality asserts itself, and you have to deal with the fact that you're not going to be able to make payroll. And so I think it's wise that we face those kind of issues squarely, honestly, look them in the eye and deal with them honestly. That's just a comment. I want to go back to, as far as what your thing is the identity, Carolyn, what you said, determining what our identity is. That's where I think the biggest unresolved issue is for me is, what do we really believe here? I mean, I came here because of her, but what kept me here was the message of interfaith. That one God, many paths. That's what attracted me. That's what kept me here. Michael was great, but he's gone. He's gone, and he's been gone a long time. But we've lost that message too, in my opinion. At least we've lost it partially. It's not our focus anymore. So
yeah, we got it up there.
Well, I come here to hear you play the guitar and sing, so don't quit coming.
All right, so we want to stay on topic now. I don't want Pandora's box can spring open, and we can continue to get into deeper conversations, but let's try to stay on task. Go ahead.
My unresolved issue that I keep coming back to is the balance of duties, whether staff, minister, board, or volunteers, versus the accountability of the follow-through.
Okay, so what you're presencing then is the distinction between there is a certain capability that the staff have, and then there are needs of the church that go beyond those capabilities, and then that becomes a big challenge. And the tendency is to blame and shame as opposed to understand and be curious as to how this is possible and to seek remedies for that overfunctioning. Okay, that's okay. It's already, I got it. This is all for me to take home with me.
Regarding our identity, I think that like one of the things that brought me in was unity, because they give us the tools to how to live our life. And yes, I believe in interfaith, but if we forget that we are unity and the new people coming in don't get the tools that we got teaching all the unity principles, what good is interfaith? It's just saying that I like you and I accept you, but we need the principles to live with to make our lives easier.
We can do both and here. It's okay. We can do both and. No worries.
Just one word, diversity.
Okay, let's put diversity. We have inclusivity and now we have diversity.
CJ?
Thank you so much. I think what I see as an unresolved issue is the skill to tend and nurture what is here, rather than fixing problems as a focus, just really nurturing what is, gardening what is present.
Okay, so just so you know that you're involved in an evolutionary process. We're not going to be fixing things. We're going to be evolving to a different practice. Okay, that happens in time. Okay.
I have an unresolved issue. I think we're still looking for the ideal space for this ministry for all programs, whether it's youth and family, sanctuary,
Right.
fellowship hall. So the ideal space is an unresolved issue.
There you go. That's good. And you can be in your ideal space and it becomes not ideal. And that's what's epidemic right now in the New Thought movement, is that everyone's space, for some reason, is no longer working. And so, anyway, due to decline or due to just the logistics of the demographics will change, all these things are part of it. All right, so I'm just going to put a couple more, and then let's see if we can finish. Go ahead.
I think we are young in the process of understanding that spiritual principles are not only applied to us as individuals, but as an organization. And that what we're collectively doing here is applying spiritual principles to shift and change and evolve a whole organization. In our understanding of spiritual transformation as spiritual principles applied to organizational transformation.
So just say applying spiritual principles to the organization. So for instance, it's like the board coming from not predict and control, but coming from a deeper place that is all about accessing the field of infinite possibilities, then creating a felt sense of what that future experience could be like, and then feeling into that future by creating the stepping stones to make that happen. And so this is still a skill that we have to develop and learn, but it can be the way the leadership ultimately functions. Gil?
I just want to share something about something that I've seen in the process of the last 11 years here that's been pretty astounding to watch, observe, live through, walk through, and what this community has done to support me, but also to see its evolution. 11 years ago, there was an artist in this community named Pat Orner who was painting the courtyard, a mural. In that courtyard mural that she painted, me and my son, she painted a courtyard mural with 3 redwood trees. On our northeast corner, we have 3 redwood trees. And I observed that we had a grief altar in the sanctuary of Pioneer Church that we all worked through our grief. For me, that was a small little post-it for what I was thrown into when my son died. Out of that, in the evening, when they were doing the second brain death test, The nurse brought out, said this was in his hands. There was a small pebble. I had no idea what that pebble was. About 9 months later, Hawkeye, Tanya, called me up and said, Gil, the relics are up in Auburn. What are the relics? Go see the relics. I saw what the relics were, had no idea. That was from my Bodhisattva, my son. But that brought something, and those who were part of my life, this community, it came into this community, and it shared what was this journey of grief that I've been through, but it brought transformation of who and what the Buddhist teachers are through this community to 5,000 or 6,000 people. That's the kind of things that you just don't know, except as you walk the journey. And you get blown one way, you get blown another. And that's the kind of things that we're going through. It's the mystery. And we are all getting there together. It's kind of, it's just the mystery of that podium over there, sitting next to the garbage can. Literally. And then fixing it, bringing it so it's now used every Sunday. I mean, there's a geometry of how this room functions that we didn't know about when we put these cameras up. But yet there's a geometry that dynamically interacts with how the chairs are set up. We didn't know how any of that happened except in the process. Being in the process is that mystery. Oftentimes we ask for answers before we step into the process because we want a permission or a certainty. There is no certainty except wherever you walk, there you are. And that's kind of what we're trying to look at. I mean, that's one of the things that there's a term in aviation for pilot in command, PIC. But each of you are person in command of your own lives. And we collaborate and work with each other to be this community as a continuum, as we keep evolving. And that is the mystery and the majesty of what we are. Keep in mind of the process. Listen, it's not what the direct focus. It's what's in the peripheral. These are, where our eyes may not fully see, but if we, look at that. That's interesting. Look, this is a different thing. Where is the perimeters? Because that's where the mystery comes into our vision. And then we share it with others. That's all.
I've been thinking about an analogy with Doctor Who. He had this TARDIS, that machine that moved through time and space, and it looks like a little phone box on the outside. But inside, it's really, really, really big, and it gets reconfigured all the time. And I think sometimes we feel growing pains as far as the space we're in or the amount of congregation, and we have decreases in population and so forth, but we need to remember the whole is bigger than the sum of the parts, and we have lots of expansion on the inside in our personal spirituality and its group spirituality. And we need to understand that the journey is as important as any destination, and that our spiritual values are the way. And so I think you're talking about how in the journey we don't know a lot of stuff. There's a lot of mystery involved, but that is a good thing. And Paula has presented us with songs about the mystery and the process of things, and so that's something we think about from time to time when we hear it in the music here.
Well, we're about complete now. So there's just we needed to kind of have a felt sense that we're all still together. And supporting each other in the process. So I feel complete with respect to what I need to be able to take this information. And so my next step is to take all this stuff in and to create your cue card, shadow card. And then once we have it, to begin to use it. And we're, as more and more of you are introduced to the tool of the cue process and have been through this, it'll become something that is integral to how you engage the mystery, the journey. So I feel complete. I thank you so much for your attention and your effort. This is not easy work, but it's something that is a gift to your ministry, because next year you have to do this again, except it's only going to take 10 minutes. because next year it's going to be 2019, whatever your attendance is, and you're going to still list all your accomplishments and your regrets. But here in this place right here, the era, it's going to be transforming lives. It's going to be not who the minister is, but how you did in terms of your being able to accomplish transforming lives, and how much of this you got addressed, resolved, exactly. And so we're moving out of telling the story in the context of who the minister is, and now we're going to begin a process of telling the story in the context of our effort to bring forth who and what we've come here to be. And so the story begins to change. And in the next year, when we tell the story, we can't tell the story about somebody did this or not doing this. It's all about we. We are not doing this. We are doing this. Whatever it is, it's all about us. There is no them anymore. There is us and them in the minister-centric model, because that's the nature of the practice. But in the mission-centric model, where we're come together to fulfill a purpose and to give ourselves the felt experience of having embodied that purpose, so that we can give into that intent, as opposed to do some kind of spiritual practice called tithing that is all about a 400-year-old practice that was meant to fund governments and organizations, as opposed to really be a spiritual practice that brings people into a sense of empowerment. And so we're going to shift this practice of tithing in this ministry. And we're also going to shift the context of how people show up in their relationship, their financial relationship to the church. And so this takes time, and it takes a willingness to be able to kind of understand where we are as well as where we need to go, and that the journey requires of us constantly to hospice what needs to be released, and to midwife what needs to be brought forth. And so my job is to help keep you on purpose in that intent. My job is to help you shift your funding model so that you can be sustainable. My job is not to alter your community life, tell you how you're supposed to be as a community. But it is my job to have you experience what it's like to have the whole organization have this single experience of a transformed life. And once you've created that experience, and my work is complete, then you already have the tools to create the ministry that you want to carry forward in your future. So this is about owning your future, and not kind of mortgaging it off to whoever's in leadership or who's ever on the pulpit. This is about you all coming into a maturity around your efforts to create an organization, a ministry, a community that's sustainable. And so there's a lot of work to do. Meanwhile, the financial stresses of funding an organization that has both a depth of staff and expertise, but yet a bandwidth that is very narrow and thin, there's a kind of tension associated with money in this economy, in this time. And so to the degree that we kind of wait for things to change before we live ourselves into the felt state of this future place where all of us can see we're giving in, not just doing what we can do, but doing more because we are more, when we have to start living into that future state right now. Because I got to tell you, if you're holding out for evidence for things to change before you return back to your level of giving or before you feel like you're inspired to do that, that separates yourself from that future. And we have to not do that. We have to imagine that we're living right now in the fulfilled state of what we can become, and we have to give into that purpose as we walk the creative process to bring that experience forth. That's what Gandhi said about being the change. We have to be that. And I'm speaking to the choir, I know. I know you like choirs because you've written about it. So anyway, God bless you all. You have a great day. All right, let's go.
Started smiling, 'cause you were smiling, and we're all in this together. I'm made of atoms, you're made of atoms, and we're all in this together. And long division just doesn't matter, 'cause we're all in this together. In the city, we're all in this together. The city's changing, 'cause we are changing, and we're all in this together. Every 12 seconds, someone remembers that we're all in this together. In the kitchen of your rent control apartment, we're all